going to be talking about the law and principle of isolation and how to use it effectively. You see, in case you don't know who I am, hi, I'm Jace. People call me Jace, Jason, Jace the Pickup Scientist, the Pickup Scientist. Someone once called me Science God. I don't know about all that, but hi, I'm Jace. And what I'm known for on this app is my ability to communicate the entire structure and process of seducing women. Now, because of that, I've also been able to learn some other very interesting skills. One of those is the ability to learn just about anything in record time and find success in it. I actually have a reputation amongst my friends as being the guy with beginner luck, but there's no real luck to it. And I've put together this tiny little course here that I debated for a long time where it's like put out for free. I've decided, fuck it. We're going to do that on this live right now. The entire course is coming out, and I'm going to give it to you guys. So, it's on the law of isolation, and I'm going to teach you how to use it to gain massive success at just about anything you want to do in a very short period of time. So I'm going to say hi to a bunch of you in the comments and the thing, and then we're just going to go right into it. Let's see. I know Carlos is here. There we go. Let me see. I hope you guys can hear me, though. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Like the video, the live, like it. And we will begin now. Okay. I'm going to list off a few names to you. Tell me if you know who these people are. Tell me if you're familiar with their work. And tell me if you see something that is familiar to you. Something that's kind of consistent with all of them. All right, I'm going to list off a bunch of names. Number 1, Jesus Christ. All right. Number 2, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Number 3, I'm going to go through a few lists of prophets in the Bible. Say Elijah, Solomon, Paul, John the Baptist, Joseph, right? Let's go out of the Bible for a second. Let's go to people that you might be familiar with throughout history. Let's talk about Malcolm X. You might know who that is. Nelson Mandela. Does that name ring a bell? Patrice O'Neal, maybe you've heard of him. Maybe you've heard of, I know you've heard of this guy, Andrew Tate. What about, this one is one of my favorite people on the internet, the Wall Street Trapper, right? What do all those people have in common? Who are those people? I'll tell you. Basically, they're all people that have done amazing, phenomenal things in their different realms of endeavor. So they have reached the pinnacle in one way or shape or form of their respective crafts and arts. And you might not know this, but all these people have one thing in common. And yes, one of those things is the fact that they have all reached success in their different fields. But the major secret that all these successful people don't ever tell you is that they all went through a period of isolation. Every single one of them. Jesus was in the wilderness after he got baptized by his cousin, I believe, John the Baptist. He ran into the wilderness and was in there for 30 days and 30 nights. He was tested by the devil in there as well. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he ran into Mount Hira for 30 days and 30 nights, right? All these prophets in the Bible, all these men that we know throughout history. Malcolm X was in prison, and so was Nelson Mandela. This is where they formulated their amazing plans and thoughts and ideas that they would later share with the world. People like Patrice O'Neal, his favorite retreat spot was Brazil. People like even Andrew Tate. I know I've seen a podcast of him talking about his story, about how he got into a business I can't mention on this live now because ironically it's the same one that he's in trouble legally for. But basically, all these men had one thing in common, and that is their ability to isolate themselves correctly so that they can use what they got from that period of isolation to gain massive success later on. It turns out a massive secret with regards to gaining success at everything and anything you want to do is your ability to separate yourself from civilization and other people and outside thoughts and ideas and bringing and centering yourself into one place for a significant amount of time so that you can come up with your most creative self and come up with amazing ideas and thoughts and strategies and the balls to execute on said strategy. Now, this is actually something that dates back thousands of years. This is beyond just about any religion in existence today. This is beyond any teaching or philosophy. People like Friedrich Nietzsche also kind of talked about this a little bit. But basically, your ability to separate yourself correctly so from people and outside distractions and other things will help you gain massive success at whatever you choose to ponder on within that isolation in a very short period of time. Okay? Now, what the bulk of this course is going to be mostly teaching you how to prepare for that. Because here's the thing. Unless you have no distractions in your life, which you definitely don't. We all have distractions, especially in this day and age that we live in. Unfortunately, we're constantly bombarded with all kinds of distractions. And our ability to focus is diminished. All of us have some kind of form of ADHD, unfortunately. It's just the truth. Unless you know how to correctly separate yourself from all those things, you're not really going to find a lot of progress in a short period of time at anything. I don't care what it is you try to set your mind to. It takes a special kind of individual to become successful. You cannot become that individual unless you isolate yourself. Properly so. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you don't believe me about the whole isolation thing, you can Google later about more recent people that use that law effectively. I actually heard that it's used a lot in the music industry. Drake and Kanye are very notorious for this. They will go as far as doing stuff like buying out stadiums and hotels and resorts just for themselves and their team to create an album, right? Because your isolated self and the people around you within that form of isolation, they come up with your best creative work, all right? But unless you have $100 million to throw around like Drake or Kanye, it's going to be a little more difficult for you. And the bulk of this course is going to be about how to do it no matter what level you're at. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is prepare for isolation. We have to get ourselves ready for the isolatory part of it. The isolation itself is going to last anywhere from 4 to 7 days. 7 days is ideal. 7 days is very ideal. We'll get into why a little more later. But for the most part, you want to do it for at least 7 days, in my opinion. Any more, and you're slowly going to become what I call a social outcast. You see, you can separate yourself from society and civilization, but you can't really do it for a long period of time. If you end up trying to be a monk or, just run off into a cave for a long period of time without reassimilating into society, you're going to F yourself up in the long run because you're going to be too detached from society to know what kind of ideas will be beneficial to it. And your ideas need to benefit society because that's how you create value for yourself in society, right? You can't bring ideas that bring value to nobody because then who will give you value in return for it? Just a simple way to think about it that way. So you don't want to stay in isolation too long. At that point, you're no longer in isolation. You're just a social recluse, pretty much. 7 days is ideal. 4 days minimum, though. You don't want to stay for 2 or 3. It's not enough time for you to detox from society. The real meat of the isolation process is around day 6 to 7. If you stay not long enough, then you're not really making that much progress. You're still far ahead of most people in terms of your ability to discipline yourself, separate yourself from all the distractions, but it's just better to be there for the full 7 days. 7 days is way better. Okay, let's talk about the actual preparation of it now. This is going to be very key. This is how I did it for a while. If you have a job that you have to go to, isolation is a little tricky because that's a job you have to be at all the time. The best way I can tell you is go on vacation. Take out vacation hours. You need to take out vacation hours from your job in order to do this correctly. You need that stretch of 7 days. You really do. If you have a job, take out a vacation. If you can't get vacation, work on getting vacation hours. Find a way. If you must keep that job after you're out of isolation, cool. If not, I would honestly tell you the ideas and the strategies that you will come up with within your isolation and coming out of it will be far more valuable than being at that job, whatever that job is. I don't care how high it pays. I do not care. What you gain in value from your period of isolation is going to be life-changing, guaranteed. So this is the kind of thing you want to take a lot of time off from. That's if you have a job. If you don't, even better, right? If you find yourself in the lowest point of your life right now, you are perfect right now. You are in the perfect position to do this correctly. You're in the basement. You're maybe probably at the brink of homelessness, or you're straight up homeless. Good. You don't need anything anyway, except for a few things. I'll tell you what they are. Second thing you need is to readjust the way you think about how isolation works. Now, in religion, what I'm talking about is kind of discussed and talked about in the terms of fasting. If you're religious, like I grew up religious, then you probably have heard about the term of fasting and what fasting is and all that. The thing though is, and this is the problem with most modern religions today, is that it's dwindled down fasting to just a long ass diet, right? The problem with that is it completely cuts off what the point of fasting is. The point of fasting isn't just not eating or drinking. That is a very small portion of it. And honestly, you can actually eat during the isolation period. We'll get into that later. But the point of fasting isn't just not eating or drinking. The point of fasting is complete separation from the world, which means you're not just separating yourself from food or from water or from electronic devices or from your computer. It's separating yourself from everybody and the worries of the world. Your mind has to be completely clear before you go in. I want to say that again. Your mind has to be completely clear of all worries and anxieties before you go in. And I'll teach you into that. In fact, that's kind of the next thing we're going to be talking about. Third thing you need before you go into isolation, you need to make sure that all the little background noises in your life are well taken care of before you go into that 7-day stretch. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. If you have tiny little bits of worries and anxieties in your life, things that you realistically can deal with in a day or less, you need to take care of all those things. So if you're, for whatever reason, worried about some kind of a bill that you haven't paid yet or you owe, you need to take care of that right now. If you owe some kind of money that is really urgent and you need to get rid of it to feel some kind of alleviation of stress, you need to pay that right now. If you have to do some weird thing, maybe around the house you got to fix something, maybe there's an ID you need to renew, there's an application you need to put in, a form, a project you need to finish, something or any of those things, you need to get rid of all those things and get rid of them effectively. Because the last thing you want to do is walking into your period of isolation while you're still thinking about all those little things. That's a big issue people don't understand. My Christians in the Christian faith, my Muslim brothers, this is why your fasting doesn't work. This is why you're not seeing the face of God, as they say. You're going into those periods of isolation without dealing with the outer worldly worries yet. Those need to be dealt with. If you have children, for instance, I would highly advise you to put them in the care of someone that you trust. Either the other parent of those children, if that isn't available to you for whatever reason, and I understand that's how life works, then find a daycare you can trust. Find a relative you can trust. Find a friend you can trust. And actually, I would also advise you, in the case of, for whatever reason, you have to go with a friend or a relative or something like that, I would highly advise you to leave them in the care of that person at least once or twice before the period of isolation, because if you do it for the first time ever, right? Like you've never left your kids over at anyone's else's house for 7 days, and then you go, okay, I want to go into isolation. Let me leave my kids over at this person's house. All you'll do during isolation is worry about your kids because you're uncertain of what is happening with them. But if you leave them in the hands of someone that you trust, that you've already left them in the hands of before, then you're not going to worry about that when you're in isolation. And that's important. You need to not be worried at all about anything going into isolation. Anything except whatever problem you think gives you the most anxiety. The one that you think is the hardest to solve, will take the most amount of leverage, resources, time, and effort on your part to solve. For some of you, that is money, undoubtedly. In fact, with the way the world is going right now, most likely it's money. For some of you, it's going to be something with regards to a relationship, because right after survival is replication. So if the money isn't the problem, then there's a relationship in your life that's the problem. All right. For the others of you, very few, it's going to be maybe an illness. Maybe it's going to be a situation you find yourself in that you've never been in before, a unique circumstance. I'm an immigrant in America. I understand the issues that might come up with those kind of things. So maybe that's the kind of thing you're dealing with. Whatever that thing is, you need to make progress in a very short period of time. This is going to be the best way. But you got to clear out all the clutter. You got to get rid of all those other little things that may chirp at your mind, may try to distract you, may give you some kind of a sense of worry, right, and anxiety. So what I'm about to teach you next is going to go into anxiety specifically, right? Let's talk about why you have to alleviate yourself from anxiety before you go into isolation. First of all, what is anxiety? Anxiety is what happens to you on a biological level when you have uncertainty around a certain subject or aspect of your life. That's all it is. Emotions in general, not just anxiety, are a spider sense of sorts that warns you when something is amiss, when something is wrong. A lot of people think of emotions as something that happens to you, but in reality, it's something that happens for you. Your emotions are not bad. Your emotions are not wrong. They're just how your body tries to communicate to you on a conscious level when something is wrong, when something is off. So you are to use your anxiety more like a gauge to figure out where the majority of your disturbance or uncertainty comes from. In fact, we'll go through a quick exercise right now. Wherever you are, I hope you're in a private place. This will work better if you're private, because I don't want you to feel embarrassed if you're in public. But I want you to go through a quick exercise with me right now. All right? And I get this idea, by the way, from a lot of study, a lot of research on this topic specifically. So you can trust me with this. It's going to be very quick, but it's going to be very powerful. I want you to sit still as you can. No funny shit, right? I'm not trying to hypnotize you or whatever. Relax. I want you to sit still, and I want you to calm your breathing, okay? And this is how we're going to do it. Very, very quickly. We're going to breathe in for 6 seconds, and then we're going to hold it for 3 seconds, and then we're going to breathe out for 6 seconds, okay? Follow me? All right, let's go. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. Good. Let's do it again. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. All right. Again, no funny shit. All I did was help your heart rate go down. That's it. And I need that to happen for the next part here. Very simple. We're going to keep breathing like this Deep breaths. You don't have to count 6 seconds anymore, but I want you to follow the movement of my hand. That's how we're going to be breathing from now. Just calm and steady. Okay. Good. That's what I want you to do. Pay very close attention, okay? We're going to think about ourselves. We're going to go inward. Good. Nothing specifically, just yourself. Look at yourself. Who you are, what you do, how you live, everything. Okay. Now keep that breathing going. And I want you to do a very simple thing for me. I want you to separate your life into as many categories as you can. You might want to do it by the environment you find yourself in, the places you go to, the people you know, however you want to do it. Maybe you're a student or a lawyer, a doctor, a barber, whatever you do. That's one aspect of your life. Then, I want you to carve out another aspect, which is your relationship with your loved ones. Then, I want you to carve out another aspect, which is your relationship with money. However that looks like right now. So we have 3 categories right there. And I want you to focus on each one. And this is what should happen. Depending on the one you focus on the most, you will naturally feel an increased sense of urgency, a little worry almost, for one of them in particular. Now, it's normal to feel it for all 3 of them, but one of them will feel a little more tense than the others. It should. And I want you to be very conscious of what that is, which category that is. If you have it, here's what I want you to do next. I want you to go deeper into that particular category. Open it up and try to pinpoint what part of it is bringing you the most anxiety, is making you feel the most uneasy. I want you to be as specific as possible. Because you can easily say, I need more money. But maybe upon closer inspection, what you really need is to stop spending money recklessly. Or maybe you need a second source of income. Or maybe you need to build up a savings, an emergency fund. Or maybe you just need to make better decisions with money in general. If it's relationships related, what relationship in particular is bringing you that anxiety? What exactly is it? Which one? Pinpoint the person. Single them out. Bring them out. Which one makes you feel the most uncertain, most uneasy? If you've pinpointed that person, figure out how you got to that point. Rewind your entire relationship with that person in your head up until this moment. Good. Good. Now, by now we've figured out what exactly brings us that anxiety. Whatever that thing is, if you can, write it down somewhere. I need you to write it down somewhere. I don't want you missing out or forgetting this or anything. That's the thing that makes your heart pound the most. That's the thing that is the most likely in your life to give you sleepless nights. That is the thing that you feel the most uneasy about. Good. Now we know what it is. Okay? That's what we're going to walk into the isolation period for, which means every other thing we try to deal with, patch, or completely get rid of, or even, depending on how insignificant it is, completely ignore it on our way into isolation. Now, I don't want you to rush yourself to prepare for your isolation. If you know for yourself that you might have to take out a whole half a year to a year to prepare yourself in alleviation of that anxiety, do it. Do it. Okay? Unless you truly are in a position, that's why I said I said earlier, if you're homeless, perfect. Because when you're homeless, you have nothing to worry about except what you're going to eat next. So that's your only reality, right? If you're somehow homeless and watching me somewhere, I don't know, but God bless you. That's the only thing you have to worry about. So it's very clear, it's very certain. You don't have a mortgage to worry about, you don't have bills to worry about, none of that. You just, boom, right there. For those of us that have lives that are a little more complex, you might have to figure out how to deal with the smaller things first. So, remember what I said before. Kids, find a way to separate them from you. Again, you're only doing it for 7 days. Relax. You're not going to die. Your kids aren't going to miss you so terribly that they won't be able to have fun without you. Relax. I know you love your kids. Oh, you just love them. But you need to make progress for them, mind you. You can't be a good parent to your children if you don't get to that next level of success. So you need to do this for them. It's going to take that kind of sacrifice. I'm sorry. This is what no one tells you. I've started meeting, because of my, TikTok fame, if you want to call it that. I'm very micro niche, Z-list celebrity that I am. I've begun to meet people that are doing far, far better than me in life, right? On every level. And if there's one thing watching these people have really taught me, it's that finding success at anything is not even about the actual systems and processes and steps that you got to take to get to that point. That's the easy part. That's, not easy per se. It's hard work, but it's simple. It's very simple. It's not complex at all. What is very complex, what is very difficult, is becoming the kind of person that can run those systems correctly. That's the hard part. And I can go into a lot of these people have all these kind of different cheats and stuff that they use to remain consistent and driven and motivated. I hate to say it, but a lot of these guys you heavily idolize, celebrities that are super, super rich. A lot of these guys are heavily relying on all kinds of stimulants and energy providers and stuff like that. But we're not going to talk about all that right now. The point is, isolation is still, in my opinion, the best way to become that kind of person, the kind of person that is willing to put in that kind of work, has the evolutionary pressure and the motivation to do all that kind of work, and can stay consistent doing that kind of work for a long period of time to realize what we refer to as success, what is really the symptoms of success. The money in the bank account, big house, big car, blah, blah. All the different things you want to do with your craft, with your skill, with your decision making, your purpose, whatever it is in your life. This is how you find success at those things, making sure you isolate yourself properly. So, here's a few things you'll need before you go into isolation. One, you'll need 1 meal a day for 7 days. Again, I didn't say you can't eat during the period of isolation. You actually can. But you can't spend the majority of your time in isolation eating something. So you're only going to pack 7 plates If you're doing it in your house, cool. Pack 7 meals, put them in the fridge, and you pick up 1 meal a day for 7 days, right? If your situation demands that you leave your house, maybe you go and find a friend's place, a basement somewhere, an Airbnb, a hotel, however you want to do this. Pack 7 meals. If you don't cook or don't have access to someone that cooks for you, get Chipotle. Okay? Get Chipotle. I don't want you getting fast food because you don't want to be lethargic during this process. You don't want anything that's too heavy in carbs. You don't want anything that's too heavy in, you don't want processed foods and all that stuff in your system. You want something that keeps you sharp, keeps you clean. If you got to eat, like the last one I did, I ain't going to hold y'all. I did oatmeal the first 3 days. Just oatmeal. Just oatmeal. Just to get your mind to where you need to be. Oatmeal for the first 3 days. Nothing fancy in it too. No bananas or blueberries or sugar. Nothing like this. Straight oatmeal. Just that. Straight oatmeal. Oatmeal and oat milk. So, yeah. Keep it plain. Keep it simple. And make sure you remain sharp. The next thing about those meals is you need to make sure that they're all small portions. Whatever it is you eat right now in one sitting, get half of that for each of those meals. Half of that for each of those 7 meals. Okay? Now, again, I want to reiterate. I understand depending on the way you are living your life, the way your life is set up right now, you might not be able to do the entire 7 days. I've said before in the beginning, for those of you joining right now, you can do it for, as little as 4 days, but not less than 4 days. 4 days is ideal. Although I would say 7 days is better. The more, the better. Not more than 7, not less than 4. But for the most part, make sure those portions are small. Food is not the point in this entire exercise. Water is not the point in this exercise at all. Not to say you can't drink water. Of course, stay hydrated. It's important. But we're not really focused on our body this time. That's not the issue here. We don't want to feed our body. In fact, this is an entire exercise, especially those first 2 and 3 days, in learning how to control your body and learning how not to be biologically impulsive, learning how to use your body for your advantage and not just become a slave to it. Remember what I told you about becoming the kind of person that can be successful? The reason a lot of people aren't is because they're slaves to their own biology. We all know how to be successful. All the information on what you need to do to be successful at whatever it is you want to do is out there already. The reason a lot of us fall short is because we keep listening to our bodies and not our minds. We still live in an instinctual world instead of an intellectual world. If we did what we knew we should be doing, then we wouldn't have to do what we feel like doing all the time. It's because we choose how we feel over what we know that we fall short. You see what I'm saying? So you have to make sure you control your body correctly, not suppress. Please understand there's a massive difference between control and suppression. Suppression is, I'm hungry. I'm going to pretend like I'm not hungry and not eat anything. Control is, I'm hungry. I'm going to eat that food, but I'm not going to eat all of it. In fact, I'll stop myself at 10 spoons or scoops or, stabs with the fork. Or I don't know what would you call a stab of a fork? You call a spoon scoop, whatever. The point is, you want to make sure you have control. And control is demonstrated in your ability to stop and go at will. If the way you think you can control your eating is by not eating at all, then that's not control. That's suppression, right? When someone finally puts a nice hot plate of tamales in front of you, you're fucked because you never learn how to control yourself when you smell something good. So inevitably, you're going to fold. The idea is to control yourself. You can have that nice hot plate of food in front of you. Take some, indulge a little bit, but then push it away when you tell yourself to. Okay? That's control. That's what we're learning in like the first 1 to 3 days of this isolation period. We're learning how to say no. The next thing is you need to say no to the internet. This is probably our biggest addiction and distraction in this modern age, is our inability to tell ourselves no whenever we feel our hand reaching for that phone screen. It is a big, big problem. Huge problem. And in some ways, some would blame me for contributing to it, and I guess in a way, but at least I give you valuable information. A lot of the time, we're just out here watching nonsense, useless information, filling our heads up with stuff we don't need, and going through, especially here on this app, TikTok, we go through a lot of emotional roller coastering, so to speak. Oh, look at that cute puppy. Oh no, how many people died in that explosion? Oh wow, look how cute she is. Oh no, look how terrible that police shooting is, and all that other stuff. I probably shouldn't say all these words because, But the point is, we're constantly elastically stretching our emotional bandwidth and slowly over time becoming numb to everything, which is why we're in constant need for some kind of stimulation, right? We're addicted to it at this point. We always have to have something around us. We always have to be entertained. We always have to be consuming something. Why do we do that? Because they made it that way. We're not talking about them right now. Don't worry about them. Yes, there's a matrix. Yes, they're all there to attack your mind. Who cares? It's your mind. It's your mind. End of the day, no matter how good they are at attacking people's minds, it's still up to you to protect your mind, right? Well, okay then. Let's fight to protect it. Separate yourself from all screens. And I'm not saying that to sound like a 70s preacher or something. I mean it. For these 7 days, you need to make sure you are not looking at any screens at all, even your phone. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what if I have responsibilities that require me to communicate with people? That's what I'm talking about. Deal with them before you come to isolation. Every single thing has to be dealt with. Your bosses at work need to be notified of this so they know that for whatever reason they can't reach you for 7 days. Your clientele, your business, whatever the case may be, let them know you're going on a period of whatever you want to tell them. Holiday, going through upgrades of the system, whatever you want to tell them. Make sure they know they cannot reach you from this time to this time. Even if there's a nuclear explosion, no one talk to you. Deal with all that beforehand. That is the point. You have kids, again, let those kids know if they're not old enough to understand you yet, then try your best to communicate with them. But if they're old enough, let them know you're not going to hear from daddy for a long time. It's going to be 7 days, but it's going to feel like longer than that. And I love you and I care about you, but you're not going to hear from me for a while. Please understand. Go stay with your auntie Fifi or your uncle Benjamin or your grandpa and grandma. Whatever you want to do. However you want to sort this out. But you need to sort these things out before you go into isolation. You want to make it so that no one feels like they have to contact you. And if at all they do, then they're on their fucking own. They have to deal with that on their own. Because you're busy with something. Now, day one of isolation. We have, hold on, before we even go into that. Let's go over this again. You have 7 days worth of food, which is a meal a day. And remember, those meals are half portion of whatever you currently eat. Oh, and by the way, for those of you that are into like bodybuilding and stuff like that, I'm not talking about your cut meals. Whatever you eat during your cut, eat half of that for each of those days. Yeah, it's punishment out here. That's how it's supposed to be. We're trying to take our bodies and our mind to the brink of human suffering. Because guess what? You are your most creative when you have the evolutionary pressure of human suffering. Very important. You want to block out as much sunlight as you can. I know, it's the opposite of everything we've ever heard. Go out, get some sun. Not right now. Block out the windows. You want that world that you stay in, that you're isolated in, to look the same in the morning and the night. Because here's the next thing. You want to completely lose track of time. You don't want to know whether it's day or night. This is so important. You do not want to know whether it's day or night. This is so, so important. casinos and nightclubs kind of already do this. Well, not nightclubs, but casinos in particular. There's a reason casinos are designed with no windows. They block out all the light, the natural sunlight. They block out all the windows. There's no windows. They just have massive vents, these huge vents, these industrial vents that do all the heavy lifting for them. And everything is lit dimly with flashy lights here and there to grab your attention to the different machines and stuff like that. They design those places on purpose so you lose track of time, right? So you're in there, whether you're winning or you're losing at the craps table, playing blackjack with the slot machine, whatever it is, over time, you don't realize, wait a minute, how long have I been in here? And guess what? You want to know what usually reminds you to check for the time? Some external evolutionary pressure. Wait a minute. Where are my friends at? Hold on. How long have we been in here? Or, wait, I'm a little hungry. I got to eat something. Oh, when was the last time I ate? Wait a minute. What day is it? Right? So you need to make sure that wherever space you're in feels like that. You want to lose the track of time. Because guess what? And this is going to be so powerful when you hear it. And it's kind of obvious now that I've kind of led into this point. Your anxiety around time passing is so much more than you realize. The passing of time is such a background refrigerator hum of a problem for most people in this world. You don't even realize how worried you are about the way time passes. Like a lot of people complain, it's going too slowly or it's going too quickly. A lot of you watching me right now don't even know this until I say it out loud. But you are way more worried about turning your next birthday age than you realize. And a lot of you watching aren't even that old, but you're worried sick. Oh my God, I'm becoming this age this year. Oh no, my life isn't looking the way it is. You've placed your entire existence around your timeline. When the key to finding success, especially in this day and age, is to let go of the concept of time. Just let that ish go. It will kill you if you keep allowing it to worry you. Don't worry about it. Right? Am I saying don't plan for the future? No. Am I saying don't have goals and checkpoints you want to hit? Absolutely. Be driven, be ambitious. But you can't allow time to drag you down in your mind. You have to think of time as your ally. You have to think of time as your friend. And if you think of time as your friend, then what naturally happens from that point on is beautiful. Time becomes a helper, not a herder, right? But in this room of isolation, this is where you really learn to appreciate time because you lose it. You lose the track of time. You lose, what day is it? What time is it? What this is it? What that is it? Whatever. I really highly advise you, man. Take away all the time. This is why I don't want you to look at any screens. Smartwatch, smartphone, smart TV, smart everything. Block it all out. I had to put, the last time I did this, I did it in an Airbnb. Shit you not. The Airbnb had one of them ovens with the time on it. I got tape and I blacked that shit out. Don't want to know the time. Don't care. Don't care. Do you understand? Let go of that idea. All right. Now, I'll get to questions later. Now, once you're in isolation, you have your food, you have yourself, and you have your thoughts. This is what I want you to do. You're going to ponder on only one thing. Just one thing. Not 20, not 30, not 4, not 5. You're not being smart by trying to spread your mental bandwidth. Don't do any of that. Don't do all of that. That is a complete waste of your time. That is completely useless. Don't do none of that. Focus on one thing and one thing only. And you're going to think about that from every angle you can. But you're going to think about it in a very unique way. You're going to think about it positively. Again, no woo-woo shit. No, mystical, magical stuff. I'm literally talking purely science here. This is what happens to your brain. When you're focused on one thing and one thing only, it forces your brain to come up with ideas around it. Not all those ideas will be good. In fact, the vast majority of them will be quite dog shit. But you're going to get ideas. And it'll still be up to you to sift through that batch of ideas to figure out which ones make the most sense for you in your particular situation. Because that's another thing. A lot of those ideas will require something that might be outside of your control, or a particular access or resource you may not have, that you have to be a little more creative with, or you have to do something else to get, whatever the case is. Aside from that, make sure you're doing just that one thing, focusing on that one thing for all of your time. Like all of your time during isolation, you're only going to be focused on that one thing. Remember that exercise we did in the beginning? For those of you that just joined and don't know what I'm talking about, we did an exercise where we went through the entire point in our minds. We kind of ruminated our minds to figure out what brings us the most anxiety in our lives. That would be considered your biggest problem. And it will surprise some of you what that may be if you go through the exercise. I want you to think about your life in a very strategic type of way. And I want you to realize that all of your life is connected. All of it is connected. No matter what part of life you're dealing with, they're all connected. But they're all usually connected around one central point. If you solve for that central point, all of them will make sense to you. But you have to figure out what that central point is. We did that in the beginning. No time to go through the others. But let's keep moving on. Okay. Next part. And this will happen usually during day 3 and day 5 or 6. Depending on if it's your first or second time doing this, it might happen faster. But let's just say day 3 to day 4. Day 3 to day 4, around there. What will usually begin to happen is now your entire life is centered around bringing forth ideas from out of nowhere. Your mind is working at 1,000% now. This is when you are at God mode. This is when everything you think, it's a hit. It's amazing. I can't even explain this feeling. I don't do recreational stuff, if you know what I mean. But I assume that's what it feels like to be on something out of this world. This is when you've hit, as the kids would say, ultra instinct. You're in the zone now. You're there. But this is also where you can lose it, right? Because if you allow outside thoughts to start seeping in, and by the way, the temptation for outside thoughts are going to start seeping in at this point. It's kind of funny how this works. When you're at your most creative is also when you're going to get the worst kind of distractions. And you'll be surprised what ways they come. Hell, don't be surprised if someone tries to pull you out of isolation. Someone tries to hit you with some kind of, this is a massive emergency, you have to come deal with this right now. Fuck all that. Keep yourself centered. This is why I say cut off all screens, cut off all everything, deal with everything. Deal with every contingency before you get to isolation so no one has an excuse to try to get you out of it. But at that point, you're in God mode. You're in God mode. You can do whatever now with your mind and your creativity. Everything's firing at 100%. Very key. Write everything you think of in that point down. Oh my goodness, I cannot stress this enough. Do you know how many billion-dollar ideas that I've had in my life that I completely cannot access anymore because I left isolation and didn't write it down? I thought, oh yeah, I have a great memory. Because that's another thing. Your ego goes through the roof because you're in God mode. You're hitting everything, like it's all just gelling, it's flowing, it's smooth. So you convince yourself you're better than you are, even though the effects are temporary. This is a temporary thing. Get pen and paper, write everything down. Write it all down. It's so important. Write it all down. Write it down. Write it down, write it down, write it down. Okay, I've said that enough. When you have all those ideas, I want you to just stare at it. Take the paper that you've written everything down on and just stare at it like a dumbass. I want you to be as silent as possible, stare at it, and really digest everything that's just come out of your head. Because you need to make it a part of you before you leave isolation. That's how you create the skyrocketed sense of self-belief that'll help you take the kind of risks that you need to take to get to that next level. Don't forget, these ideas might be great. They might be amazing. But without execution, and specifically without the balls to execute on them, they will never come to fruition. They just never will. So you need to make sure that while you're in there, you're giving yourself the evolutionary pressure to act on it. Act on it immediately. Okay? That's day 3, 4. Probably if this is your first time doing this is 5, right? Okay. Day 6 and 7, the last 2 days, all I want you to do, and this is going to sound so silly, but I promise you there is a scientific reason to back it up. I just want you to be grateful. That's it. Just be grateful. Be grateful for those ideas. Every single one of them you got. Be grateful for the ability to have those ideas. Be grateful for the ability to come up with them and put them to writing and not forget them. The ability to be in the position to even go into isolation to begin with, because god damn, it's a difficult thing to do. I'm sure I just explained to you all the prep you need to even go into isolation. Some of you will have to go by next year this time because it'll take that long to prepare for it, right? See? So be grateful for that. Feel gratitude in every single corner of your life. Every single corner. I want you to be grateful for the hair on your head, the size of your dick if you got a large one. Be grateful for that shit. I'm not even kidding you, and I probably shouldn't use that example because TikTok will ban me. But be grateful for every single thing. Be very grateful. I want you to soak and bask in just the glory of knowing that you didn't have to be here, and yet you are. Be happy about that. Be happy about that, dude. Like, I'm not saying all those problems that you've had ideas for are solved. I'm not saying they're all resolved, but act like they are, because they pretty much are. If you have it all written down and you went through the process correctly, you're happy as hell right now. You are happy as hell, and just be grateful for that. Just the last 2 days. It might seem excessive for 2 days, but let me tell you what usually happens. When you start that gratitude process, more ideas come. It's the wildest thing. I don't know why. But more ideas come, and usually those ideas are better than the original ones you got during day 4 and 5. And I'm going to tell you why. This is a scientific reason. It turns out when you feel positive emotions, your body does its best to replicate that in your body. And it'll secrete certain hormones that allow you to feel physically how you feel mentally and psychologically. Basically, it's a principle called the mirroring and matching of physiology with psychology. So the way you feel physically, your psychology will replicate, and then vice versa. The way you feel psychologically, your physiology will replicate. It's like these old school hypnotists that would tell people, if you want to feel like a winner in the moment, don't try to convince yourself you're a winner. Just lift your hands up like you won something, right? Just lift your hands up and start screaming, yeah, I won, yeah, I'm happy, yeah. If you do that convincingly enough to yourself, your body will naturally secrete the dopamine and the oxytocin that it would usually secrete after you've gone through like a successful athletic performance, right? So you're gonna naturally be in that state. You're gonna be hyped. You're gonna be happy. You're gonna be energetic, and this is so key. You're gonna be surprised how much energy you have at the end of this, even though you've technically depleted yourself of all this food, time, energy, water, whatever. You're gonna have so much energy. This is why you don't have to rely on weird stimulants or all kinds of, I don't want to use these words here, but you know what I mean when I say stimulants. There's a lot of people that are heavily reliant on certain things that they have to take on a daily basis to feel like they have the kind of energy output that they should have. You don't need that. What you really need is evolutionary pressure, a biological reason. And you get that when you have all those things written down from the isolation process. Okay? Now, here's the next part. What you need to do after the isolation. Because you've just been away from all things society, the internet, all that for 7 days. Whether you realize it or not, that's a long time. That's a long time, dude. No screens, nothing, 7 days, that's a long time. All right. When you get out, you're going to slowly, very slowly, very, very slowly, reassimilate yourself back into society. And it needs to be slow. You can't just jump right in. If you do, you can't anyway, because you're already slightly socially uncalibrated from the time you spent away. As little as 7 days seems, trust me, a lot more has happened in that 7 days than you can keep up with. And you have to be okay with not keeping up with any of it. Chill out. It's okay. Especially those of you watching that are content creators like me. We all know we have this feeling of we have to jump on the next story. Chill out. Relax. When I first started, I was like that too. Relax. Chill out. The next thing that'll naturally happen while you slowly reassimilate yourself is people will notice a difference with you. At first, they will probably say, like mentally, they'll tell themselves, oh, it's a physical thing. He's lost weight, right? And that's usually because of the natural caloric deficit you've been on because you've just not been eating as much. Fair enough. But that's not the weight they're really saying. What they're really saying is your heightened sense of self. Look at your own face in the mirror when you get out of isolation. First thing you'll notice, there's now a glow in your eyes, right? And again, I'm not really talking spiritual here. You can have your own spiritual interpretation for it. But the real scientific reason is simple. Your brain has gone through a lot more mental activity. So everything, all your senses are a lot sharper now. Just sharp. You would be shocked at how well you could read micro expressions. You can read micro expressions very well. Use that to your advantage. It's really fun. While you're reassimilating yourself, you need to come up with a way to make sure that all the ideas that you had during isolation can add value to people while you're now out there. Let's go back to the names I mentioned in the beginning of the whole thing. For those of you that were in the beginning, remember when I said that there's like, a Malcolm X, Patrice O'Neal, Andrew Tate, Jesus Christ, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. When they got out of their different periods of isolation, whether it was Malcolm X or Nelson Mandela in prison, or it was Jesus Christ or the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in their respective, the wilderness or Mount Hira, when they came out, what did they do? Did they immediately go back out there and did the same things they were doing before they got in, or did they do something differently? They did things differently. I'll tell you what those things are right now for you, because, you're not Jesus Christ or the Prophet Muhammad. Fair enough. I'll tell you what to do. First thing you need to do is make sure you reevaluate your entire life decisions, whatever they are. Now, to be fair, this is something that would have already happened during the isolation period anyway, but now is the time to execute on it. You would have known the things you need to do immediately you get out. Start doing those things, whether it's deleting those certain apps, canceling those certain accounts, getting rid of those certain friends, maybe even quitting that certain job. Who knows? Whatever the thing is, getting rid of that habit, and you know the habit, don't lie to me, then don't lie to yourself. Get all those things out the way. The next thing you need to do after that is begin to execute on all the plans and strategies within your notes or your jottings, whatever you have them in. The sooner you execute, the better. Because the longer you go away from the period of isolation, the more you taper off, right? If you do stuff from day one out of isolation, you have more vigor and energy than if you wait a whole 30 days afterwards. Now, the chances that you'll actually wait a 30 days is very unlikely because the kind of energy you get from isolation is crazy. So you'll find something to do with it. Just make sure it's the things that you plan to do while you were still in isolation. And then the last thing, finally, once you start executing on these things, it's very key to still do some little bits of isolated work. You need to find things to do regarding your plan that makes you focus on just those things entirely. You're not going to do it in a 7-day stretch anymore, but you're going to do it in a very methodical way, a very strict and focused way. The problem most people have while they come out of isolation is that they lose that ability to focus as time goes on. All right? You want to keep that as much as possible. All right? That's pretty much the process of isolation. Few things to look out for, though. One, massive life changes. If you decide when you come out of isolation that the best move for you is to leave the country, I want to say it right now, I will not be held responsible. But don't be surprised if that is what you decide. That is something that's possible. So be prepared to make major life changes, most of which will not be comfortable. Okay? Another thing to look out for. In general, the relationships you have will undergo a massive test and reevaluation in your own mind. So you need to decide for yourself before isolation whether that relationship is worth it for you or not. If not, I suggest you get rid of it before isolation. If yes, it's going to be a really bad breakup with whoever that is. Especially if that person is your blood relative. Very bad. What else can I tell you about isolation as a warning? Oh, yeah. Ooh, I should probably have started with this one. For the love of God, okay, make sure you do not tell anybody before you go into isolation. Do not tell anybody about this process. Do not tell anybody this is what you're doing. As far as they're concerned, you're in Costa Rica sipping a pina colada or something. You are not doing anything out of the ordinary or weird or whatever like that. Just make sure they understand that for whatever reason, you cannot be reached for 7 days. That is all they need to know. Do not tell anybody. Do not tell anybody. Okay. I need questions. Let me have questions. If you have any questions about the process, any part in the process, let me know right now. Hold on, let me scroll back up, see what's going on. Scroll the live. Have you ever heard of the sacred oil? Oh, sacred oil. Don't know. If you've seen the spirit, how do you know? If you've seen the spirit, how do you... I never said anything about spirits, but if you do see spirits, welcome them. They didn't visit you for no reason. Say hi. I missed the beginning. Isolation in which way? For those of you that missed the beginning, I'll be putting this entire presentation in the Self-Belief 2.0 course. To be fair, I'll probably put it on my YouTube for a little while, just because I don't want to be too much of a dick to y'all. So it'll be on my YouTube tomorrow, okay? The last part, don't cast your pearl before the swine. I forgot what that means. I've heard that saying before. I absolutely have no idea what that means. Let's see. In your experience, what percentage of ex-girlfriends look for you after your process? Ex-girlfriends? If we're talking about the isolation period, that usually doesn't happen until like the 2 months after the isolation period. If you're talking about my breakup science course, damn near 96%? So, that's my batting average. Pretty high for ex-girlfriends. Not that I let all of them come back anyway, so, Do not cast. It means if you're sharing sacred knowledge and it's not appreciated, stop sharing it. Sure. I train at the gym, then have MMA training. Should I stop it for the 7 days? Yes. Hold on. I want to make it very clear. We call it isolation for a reason. You're not leaving your house for 7 days. You probably weren't here from the beginning, so I'll tell you that again. I use an example of how casinos block out their windows and doors from outside sunlight so that people inside can't tell the difference between whether they're in the day or night period. You want to create that same effect for the isolation process. You want to truly let go of the concept of time. Block out, take down the clocks, take down the digital clocks, put a tape over them. You don't want to see any clocks or remember the concept of time. You just want to be existing. You just want to, if you stay in a place that has thin walls and you can still hear stuff like the morning train outside, go do your isolation somewhere else. That's not good enough. Because you live in your place and you're familiar with your place, obviously. You probably have that one neighbor that has that one really loud car, right? And every morning they put it on, it's 7 a.m. because that's when your neighbor with the loud car gets up to go to work. Get out of that place. If you cannot soundproof your house, go and do your isolation somewhere else. Very important. You don't want anything that remotely reminds you of a way you've subconsciously programmed yourself to keep track of time. Okay? Religion, morals, and dating girls. Hell yeah. How many times in your life have you done isolation, and did you ever do more than 7 days? I have done more than 7 days, and I'll tell you right now, you probably don't want to do that. I've done isolation now 3 times. Full disclosure, one of the times I did it was just before I started my TikTok account. Use that information for what you will. Not even kidding. The strategies, everything I do, the way I set my page up to be binge watchable, the way I roll out courses from time to time, everything. So do with that information what you will. Let's see. More than, I didn't even touch on that. Let me tell you why you don't want to do isolation for more than 7 days. In fact, let me tell you why you don't want to do, the ideal is 7 days because 7 days is where you get everything you need, especially for the situation you're in. More than 7 days, that's when you start solving problems that go beyond you. And honestly, you start taking on the burden of the world and you become a crazy person. You become a legitimate crazy person. I'm not saying that's not useful. In fact, there's some people that need to do that. But more than likely, that's not where you're at. Especially if this is the first time you're doing it. You don't want to do that right now. More than 7 days, no. 7 days is all you need. In fact, let's be honest. Most of you watching me right now cannot stay by yourself for longer than 40 minutes. So I'm talking about 7 days. That's already like a million years to you. You want to do 30? You really want to do 30? Stop it. Practice first. Get to that point, and then eventually you can go insane like I am. I believe a lot of great men that have been in jail went in that process. All of them. Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela, President Olusegun Obasanjo, that's one of the presidents of my country, Nigeria. All of them went through a period of isolation. Even Andrew Tate. Like, I was watching a podcast of him where he was talking about how he was in a situation where he owed someone money or something like that, and he needed to find a way to come up with money in a very short period of time. And he ended up doing it by accident, really. I don't think he even knew what he was doing. But he locked himself in his room, and he just thought about nothing but how do I make money. And that's when he came up with the whole OF thing that he did to make his first millions. So, good for him. Making me think of the hyperbolic time chamber of DBZ. That's literally what it is. If you're being, like, dead on, you hit it right on the head. That is quite literally what it is. Except we don't have a physical one to go to. The way we go into that hyperbolic time chamber is the entire process I've laid out in this life, right? So make sure, again, the most important parts before you go into isolation is to make sure that you alleviate yourself of any of those small little anxieties. You don't want to go into it thinking, oh, I still haven't fixed that one light bulb in the bathroom. The card was making a little noise that I don't know. I should probably get that checked. Oh, I haven't paid that bill. Or, oh, I should probably do that one thing and apply for that one thing and renew my ID. No. Get rid of all that stuff first. Get rid of it. In fact, here's a good piece of advice. This is a habit I've had now for 3 years, and it will save your life. Pay all your bills 1 month in advance. At least. Personally, all my bills right now are paid like 3 months in advance. All of them. So, how do you think I walk through the world knowing that if for whatever reason all my sources of income were cut off? I'm chilling for 3 months. Plus, I got a 6-month emergency fund. How do you think that helps you walk through the world? With very little to worry about. That's how. You know what I mean? Keep that habit. Like, even when I was working Chipotle, I had this habit. 3 months ahead. Well, I built up to 3 months. But a month ahead will make you feel so much lighter to know that you can afford to skip a bill. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. You want to get ahead of that stuff. Play chess. Suffer now. Play chess. All right. Let's see. When do you sleep? Depends on the day, honestly. Last night I was asleep at 4 a.m. I had to stay up last night. Last night was interesting. I had to stay up for a coaching call last night, and our time zones were kind of off. So it just made more sense for me to stay up, so that person would be able to catch me on a call after work. So it just, it depends on the day. It depends on what I'm doing that day. But I always make sure I wake up before 7, preferably. Had an argument with girlfriend about a week ago. I did not get emotional. I let her leave. Good. She proceeded to block me on all platforms. Explosive breakup. Good. If you've seen my breakup science course, by the way, I'm thinking about letting that go live again. I think I probably like and comment if you want me to let that go live again, because I think I took it off the platform. I'll put it out again if you guys like and comment. Let me know if you want to see the breakup science course. But basically, what you're talking about right there is what I talked about in the breakup science course, which is you have an explosive breakup situation. She blocked you on all platforms. She will not keep you blocked on all platforms for a long period of time. In fact, check back in about a week and a half or 2. If that, honestly. A lot of times it's 4 days. But she's trying to block you right now because that's how she feels. At some point, she's going to come back to see if her decision to block you was the right one. Make sure it was the wrong one. That's your job. But more in the course later. I'll probably put it out if you guys want me to. What are the best topics we should focus on, like making money, for example? You want to think about money from one of 3 angles. 1, how to use money correctly once you have it. 2, how to earn more money. 3, how to not get rid of money or let it escape you without a purpose, aka not wastefully spend it or frivolously spend it, right? So money is really just energy, and energy is coming in and going out. The problem is a lot of people have energy coming in, or it's not enough energy coming in, or when they have energy coming in, they let it go out too quickly, or they don't use it correctly before they let it go out. It's not really the speed of it. You can let it come in and go out quickly, but make sure you have a system in your life where it makes sense how you're using it, no matter how quickly it goes, right? Like, you can make money today. Like, I spent a good amount of, I don't want to go into bragging about all that, but basically, you can make a lot of money and let all that money go at the same time, as long as you can pinpoint to one thing and be like, okay, there's a good reason why it left that quickly. Does that make sense? All right. Those are the things you want to focus on, just from those 3 angles. Can you, for example, go push-ups or some physical exercise at all? You can do is focus, eat, sleep. You can do exercise during, absolutely, I didn't say that. You can definitely do, in fact, you probably want to do exercise. You want to do exercise because you want to put your body under even more suffering. In fact, add this to it. Only cold showers during isolation. Only cold showers. No comfortable ass showers. You don't want comfortable showers. You're in fact, turn off your heater. Turn off your heater, turn off your AC, remove your blanket. You want to stay as uncomfortable as you can during that 7 days. Very important. If you have to sleep on the floor, do it. Do it. The more discomfort you feel, the better. You want to put your body right there at the brink of the highest levels of human suffering, right? So, yeah, you can definitely exercise. You can definitely exercise. Who cares? Your mom. Bro, quick question. Do you have videos on how to lead girls correctly and get girls? Actually, that's like one of my next few videos coming out. Leadership. How to lead properly in a relationship. We'll get into that later. Hypnotic rhythm is part of all that. You got Riz? Oh, shit, I better. It's my job. I hope to see this on your YouTube account to catch all the sauce. No problem, man. No, Jace, when do you sleep in the isolation period? Oh, when do you sleep in the isolation period? Honestly, you won't sleep a lot. That's 2 things that'll happen naturally that you won't even understand why, but it will. You won't feel as sleepy as you thought you would all the time, and you won't feel as hungry either. Last time I did the isolation period for 7 days, I didn't even finish all 7 of my meals. I did like 4. You know what I mean? So very naturally, especially after the second and third day, bodily needs just kind of go away. They don't, not that they don't exist anymore or they're not needed, but their priority goes down on the list significantly. All right. How to balance religion, morals, and girls. Okay, that's a great question, Carlos. And of course, it's Carlos that asked me that question. He always has the most fucking amazing questions because I always have to give the most amazing answers to him. When it comes down to it, this is how I do it. You don't have to copy me, but this is how I do it. Religion and morals are concepts in general that we came up with as human beings to understand how to move through the world. Now, am I saying that there's no such thing as a God or that the worship of this God is a waste of time? Absolutely not. I don't wear these crosses for nothing. We Jesus gang around here. But I will say that whatever God you believe in, whatever God that made this entire system, made it with specific rules in place. And it makes sense to understand those rules by separating those rules from the God that created the rules. And let me tell you what I mean by that. For instance, we all think, and this is another video that's coming out soon, don't tell anyone, we all think that cheating in a monogamous relationship, for instance, hold on, I gotta plug my thing in, it's kind of getting low. We all think that cheating, perfect, we all think that cheating is an immoral, unethical thing to do. I have a video on cheating coming out soon. Watch out for that. I'll give you the video right now. We can all agree cheating is bad, okay? However, the problem with that kind of thinking is that on a biological and evolutionary level, cheating is not only not bad, but in certain cases, the ideal thing to do. Let me explain. If our biological imperative is to survive and replicate, which, by the way, it is. Again, I'm not saying that as a contradiction to God. I'm just saying, in my mind, God created us as human beings. And these human beings that he created us as have been put on this earth to multiply. And if that's the case, then it makes sense that we all have the same drive to survive and to replicate. And if we all have the same drive to survive and replicate, then a little thing like exclusivity isn't going to get in our way. A little thing like, oh, that's that guy's girl. Even though she's choosing me, I can't fuck her. Oh, no, that's wrong. That's not really going to get in our way because going with that girl improves our strategy for survival and replication, right? So I don't see it as two different things. This is why I think most religions miss me with it, is that they try to go, religion is all about separating yourself from your humanity. And then your other half of it, which is like your bodily function, your humanity, is wrong. It's demonized. It's bastardized. It's darkness within you. And it's like, nah, I don't even see it as darkness. If you see an attractive woman that belongs to someone else, oh, almost hit my light off. If you see an attractive woman that belongs to someone else's wife, for instance, and you feel attraction for her and she feels attraction for you, we can all think it's wrong to pursue that, but on a biological level, you succeed. If you can get a baby in her, you just successfully multiplied your genetics. That's a dub for you, right? So I don't think religion should be taught as a way to like demonize what we are as an animal. Because no matter how we slice it, no matter how we try to tell ourselves different, we are animals. This is where a lot of people miss me. It's like, if you think of us as humans, and oh, those are animals over there, then you'll begin to deceive yourself into thinking that we're better than animals, and we're fucking not. We're not, right? Well, because we're not licking our balls and scratching our ass on the carpet. We're not animals. We're animals too. We're animals too, and God created us that way. I don't think God meant for us to try to alleviate ourselves of our animal instincts. I think his idea of his children, which is us, is that we find a way to exist in this plane of existence right here by balancing both, by bringing harmony to our intellect and our instinct. That's what I truly believe. That's why I think a lot of the rules that we place on ourselves are very limiting. Very limiting. What other examples should I use that isn't so controversial? Because everything I say is controversial. You know how I am, Carlos. It's just, okay. Why is it that we all think cheating is wrong? When in reality, men and women use cheating differently. Men use cheating as a way to create more life and multiply their genetics and increase their chances of doing that. Because for us, it's the numbers game, right? Women, on the other hand, use it to increase their chances of survivability by replacing the man they're with. Like, you gotta understand, this is something most people don't tell you. A lot of these guys that catch their girls cheating, when they do catch their girls cheating, guess what happens the vast majority of the time? The girl has no remorse. None. Wanna know why? Of course she doesn't. Because in her mind, she's trying to further her strategy by ditching the weaker man for the stronger one. Now, granted, we can all argue that she's going about doing it the worst way possible. And I'm okay with admitting that. I agree with you on that. That's an unrighteous way to go about replacing someone. If at all you can call it a righteous thing to do. But with that said, though, does that change the fact that she doesn't want her dude anymore and she wants the new guy? Right? There's a show on Netflix I watched with, I think I said this in my video too. It's a show I watched on Netflix with my girl a couple years ago. It's called Sex Life. I don't know if you guys seen that show yet. Great show. And it's basically talking about the dualistic nature of the female imperative, the female strategy. She got with the guy, the bad boy type. She fell in love with him, had a wild ride, fucked in the pool, all that stuff. I should probably stop cursing. And she fell so deeply for him, but for whatever reason, she had to be separated from him. And then she found another guy that was like the nicer provider type. She got with dude. She replicated with dude. She had 2 kids for him. And then years later, like 8 years later or something, she runs back into ex-boyfriend, the bad boy, right? And it instantly gets reignited. The sparks, the chemistry they had, all that. And the weird conclusion to the season 1 of that show, well, this is what the writers try to communicate to the audience anyway, is that women always need both. They need the good man who will provide, and then they need the bad boy who will fuck her brains out. And in my mind, I'm like, that's so wrong, because if the guy who provided really was that cool or amazing in any way, why did she go back to choose the ex? Because it sounds to me the ex is who she really wants. The provider guy is just a placeholder. But why are we judging women for wanting the guy she really wants? Well, I think we should judge women for is wasting the time of the placeholder. Me personally. That's how I see it. I don't want to ramble on too much, but you know. Oh shit, let me scroll back up. Let's see. Can we read books? The book better have the book better be concerning what you want to solve, like the problem you're trying to solve during isolation. That's what you want to do. If it's money, that's your issue, read books on money. If it's relationships, that's your issue, read books on relationships.